Liza. I am from the Neurospecialist Institute. I'm so excited to share this amazing opportunity with you guys. We have Kylie here from Harmonic Bionics, and we also have our lovely model,
Shabul. He's in the background there. You guys will get to see him here in just a few minutes.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and let Kylie take it away. She's going to give us a little rundown on what the Harmony SHR is and how it can pave the way for high tech in our clinical practice.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. As Riza mentioned, my name is Kylie. I'm actually an occupational therapist by background, previously working in acute inpatient rehab and skilled nursing previously, but more recently hospital-based. I left clinical practice a year ago to pursue my non-clinical therapy dreams of working for a really cool, innovative, high-tech company, and that just happened to be Harmonic Bionics. So we're Harmonic Bionics, located in Austin, Texas. And as I mentioned previously, high-tech, new cutting edge. This device that you see right behind me, this is Harmony SHR. This is our flagship exoskeleton. And yeah, Shabul's in the background here. He's going to be my patient today, but he's one of our engineers that works here at Harmonic Bionics.
Thank you guys so much. We're so excited to learn all about it. So as we dive into our Harmony SHR, Kylie, can you tell us a little bit about the origin of this device and what inspired this idea to come to fruition?
Absolutely. So being here in Austin, Texas, we have a university called the University of Texas. You may know them as the Longhorns, but they have a very large robotic program called Renew Robotics Laboratory. And this device is a spin out of that lab. Our co-founder, his name is Ashish Deshpande, and several years ago, he's a roboticist and professor, and like I mentioned, the head of the Renew Robotics Lab. He suffered his own sports-related upper extremity injury that led him to outpatient therapy. And so he got a firsthand experience of what it was like in an outpatient gym. And him being a roboticist and focused on, cutting edge and improving the user experience, improving, outcomes for people, he looked around the therapy gym and saw everyone doing a lot of manual therapy, working with TheraBands, working with weights, things like that. You saw therapists manually moving people limb by limb, hours and hours at a time. And so he, asked himself the question, how can he make upper extremity rehabilitation more comprehensive, more objective, better for the therapists, better for the patients? And so ironically, his sister is an occupational therapist. And so with her in mind, he posed some of those questions to her. And with working with her and some of her other colleagues back and forth, he ended up taking some ideas back to his lab at the University of Texas. And him and his PhD fellows built a model of Harmony that looks very close to what you see here today. So a prototype around 2015 or 2016. Harmonic Bionics came about in about 2019, so just in time for the pandemic, but that didn't stop us from creating the commercialized device that you see behind us. We received FDA registration this past February, and so we're just now beginning to clinically sell and install. Our very first clinical unit was installed in June of this year. And I'm leaving tomorrow to go out and install another unit that we've recently sold and we'll be installing. And so really exciting things to come. And yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of the background and the origin story of our device.
That's amazing, actually, because we always talk about collaborating with other fields and how OT can kind of spark other fields into moving in the direction of like client first. And so this is amazing. This is super awesome. And
thank you.
We were able to kind of combine tech and manual therapy together. So this is great. This is a really good way of like pivoting OT.
Exactly.
So, I know earlier you mentioned some conditions. Let's dive in a little bit about that. What kind of populations or conditions do you think that would benefit from the Harmony SHR?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally when Ashish, our co-founder, had the idea in mind, he was very interested in the stroke population. He realized that population specifically, there's such a large emphasis on any of the neurodegenerative or neuro diseases on neuroplasticity, and how robotics in previous studies from years earlier can help with neuroplasticity, so increasing neuroplastic effects and cortical changes for our patients, which is essential for great patient outcomes and the longevity of healing as well. And so consulting with his sister, who was a neuro-based OT, this device itself kind of spun out of the idea of working with neuropopulations. So very heavily focused on stroke, spinal cord injury, TBI, so on and so forth, MS, Guillain-Barré, all of those diagnostic conditions, as well as orthopedic. So looking at upper extremity injuries, repairs, tendon transfers, that type of stuff. How can we utilize our device? in that realm as well. So definitely very much focused on the neuro population to start, but there's been a lot of interest in the ortho space with using our device. And there's not really a limit as far as who can use the device, but as far as like the efficacy of what we're looking to accomplish, we're definitely heavily focused on the neuro populations.
Yeah, it sounds like it can be super broad and apply to so
Yeah.
many different populations.
From
So
just degenerative weakness or long COVID, like I said, to stroke, to all of those things. So there's definitely a lot of use cases, some of which we are still yet to be discovered because we're so new, but really excited and looking towards the future on how that can all play out.
you can definitely see that going really far. That's so cool. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into our demo. So Kylie, if you could go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. So Shabul, if you don't mind coming over and having a seat. So right now, what you guys are seeing, this is Harmony, and he's already wearing the attachments for the sake of time, but there's going to be 4 attachments, 2 on the upper arm, 2 on the lower arm. The device itself, you can't probably see, but it's sitting on 3 lockable wheels. So similar to how you would move like a Hoyer lift or anything else around a Sarah stander, anything like that. It's got those same kind of caster wheels, and they just go ahead and lock into place and anchor down to the floor. So this device itself is very movable. You can put it on and off elevators. It can go from the therapy gym to bedside. It's meant to be mobile. It itself, when it's not in use, doesn't take up a lot of real estate in the gym. It actually kind of folds down all into itself together. And the device itself is operated by this pendant right here. So hopefully you guys can see that on the screen. But just a very basic, like looking simple pendant that's industrial grade, meant to be used with any types of cleaners, wipes that you'd find in a regular therapeutic setting or hospital setting. But with Shabul already kind of strapped in, if you could just hold up your hand so you guys can see how the attachments go on. So there's a palmar piece across the palm, and then there's going to be the straps that hold it to the arm, and then the upper arm looks similar to like a blood pressure cuff. So I'm going to go ahead and hook Shabul into the device. All right, put you in. So first time getting a patient onto this, as a clinician, I would take 4 measurements, 2 of the upper arm, or 1 on the upper arm, 1 on the lower arm, the shoulder breadth and the shoulder height up to the floor. I'm going to input those 4 pendants in, or those 4 measurements into the pendant. And with that, the device is going to go ahead and size itself. It's going to also create a patient profile. So each patient gets a unique numerical identifier. And anytime that patient returns, you would just enter that sequence into the device. And it's going to resize itself and leave itself off at the same settings that you last were at. I went ahead and sized Shabul ahead of time. There's also switches on each segment that I mentioned. So shoulder height, upper arm, lower arm, and shoulder breadth to make adjustments as well. Not all of our patients are going to be perfectly symmetrical. So there might be some instances where one arm might be a little bit different calibration than the different arm than the other arm, or the shoulders might be not perfectly symmetrical, which is fine. Our device is able to be completely customizable in that aspect. So Shabul's already clipped in. You guys can see how quickly that took. The average initial setup time for our patients right now is about 10 minutes. The returning patient time is about 2 minutes. So just to give you an idea of how quick the on and off time it would be is for a patient to get on and off this device. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the operation of Harmony. So I mentioned the initial setup. The device itself has 7 degrees of freedom, 14 degrees of freedom total, 7 degrees on each arm, which is incredible. If you think about a lower extremity exoskeleton, those have 2 degrees of freedom, front and back and out to the side. Our device is capable of pronation, supination, elbow flexion and extension, shoulder flexion, extension, abduction and adduction, internal and external rotation, as well as all of the scapular movements that one would need to have true scapulohumeral rhythm. So protraction, retraction, elevation, depression. And that's honestly the thing that makes us extremely unique in the marketplace. No other devices are bilateral or have a scapular component. So it allows for a healthy shoulder to reach 85% of its shoulder like optimal max range. So for our patients, that's more than functional. 85% of shoulder range of motion is more than functional for most of our patients that we're seeing. Right now, I just placed Shabul in the very first mode. So we've got 3 modes. We've got active freeform, predefined exercise, and we also have one called bilateral sync. Of the 3 modes, there's also 2 settings. The difference between the settings and the modes, the two settings can be carried out through any of the 3 modes. The first setting being weight support. So that's how I would provide some support. It feels like the feeling of buoyancy. I can remove weight from a patient's arm so that they can move easier through space, especially when we're looking at patients with low activity tolerance. For them, it's going to be a way that they can move longer. We also have range of motion limits. And so it's exactly what it sounds like. We can block out different joints. We can block out certain ranges. If we know a patient has chronic shoulder pain, we know that a certain position or movement is uncomfortable for that patient, we can block that. Also, if we're just trying to focus on an isolated movement as well, we can block certain joints to facilitate just pronation, supination, if you will. So kind of holding the arm in place as well. So Shabul, if you don't mind, go ahead and reach up and touch the back of your head for me. There we go. And right now, you're going to see I'm just demonstrating the range. You can just go ahead and kind of like freely move. You can pretend like you're feeding yourself, something like that. So in this mode, this is active freeform. He is able to drive the device. So I'm not giving him any assist. This mode specifically right now is just active. If I wanted to make it active assisted, I could go ahead and take some of that weight support and into account. And that would now be active assisted because I'm reducing the, feeling of gravity against the limb. And it feels like, as I described to you guys, feeling of buoyancy as well. This mode, so as an OT, automatically, I think of all the things that I can do that are task specific, especially with ADL. So you could feed yourself. Yeah. You could brush your hair. There we go. And just so you guys know, the robot accounts for its own weight. So really all Shabul is feeling is the weight of the attachments attached to him. But there's no like additional weight from the robot that he's feeling. He could reach all the way up behind himself and tuck in his pants. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that, but he can reach all the way back, extend and tuck in the back of his pants. Perfect. Thank you. As far as this mode goes as well, we can put on some VR goggles and play some games. There's some really cool different things that we can do in this mode because he is driving. Most of the other devices in the marketplace, you're actually strapped into something and having to play a game in order to participate with the machine. Whereas our machine is built with function in mind first and with gamification and all those other things as an addition to your practice. Currently in practice, most people that are using robotic upper extremity devices, they're playing these games and they're having to take time away from those games to go and focus on the tasks that they're working towards to ensure that there's carryover between the robotic device and the task that they're working towards with their goals. With our device, we're able to not only pop some goggles on and make it gamified or roll a screen in front of you and engage those with those different things. So Wii gaming, Xbox, all that fun stuff. But now I can actually focus on the things that I need to focus on by just getting him into this device and giving him the verbal cues that I just mentioned to you all. So this is active freeform. Like I said, I could put weight support on and it could be on for any of the amount of time that I see is appropriate. But for the purpose of our visit today, we're going to go ahead and pop right into the next mode. This is called predefined exercise. So I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I'm going to give you a little bit of weight support. So we'll do on the left side, I'm going to give you 1 kilogram of weight support. On predefined exercise, I'm going to go ahead and enter into, we'll just start with exercise number 1 on the left side. I'm going to change it at 100% assistance, and I'm going to go to 8 repetitions per minute. Hit start here. You might be able to hear the auditory cue. So that's one of the accessibility features of our device is it has an auditory cue for the end ranges. So hopefully you can catch that on the microphone. It's a little bit lower of a tone. It's something that we're looking at turning up a little bit louder because therapy gyms are loud places. But just to give you an idea, so Shabul can move with it. So go ahead and move with it. Shabul, come all the way out. That's what we're always wanting our patients to do. It's going to prompt him to pull back. Or if he wants to resist the device, go ahead and try to resist it a little bit. So the device operates like a spring. So if it feels resistance, it's going to go ahead and relax. So if there was to be tone or anything like that kicked in, it's not going to force your patient through. You can work with it, or you could be completely flaccid and get use out of this as well. So like before he wasn't doing anything, his arm was just kind of going with the motion. We never want a patient to be fully passive. We always want them to at least be thinking about that movement. But if that is the case, especially for our SCI population, this is a great way to just maintain joint integrity and also reduce subluxation and some of those other chronic shoulder injuries that can develop over time. With non-use or misuse. So that's predefined exercise. I'm going to go ahead and hit stop. We're going to come back out to the main screen. And then last but not least, one of my personal favorites. This is called bilateral sync. So go ahead and relax both of your arms, Shabul. And I want you to go ahead and only bend your right arm for me. Okay. So we are now mirroring. So right now his right arm is driving his left arm. So as he moves the right arm, his left arm's going to mirror. So go ahead and, come out and come back in for me.
Both arms?
Yeah, or just with right. Pretend like your left arm's not working. So you can kind of see how it's going to be mirroring. Yeah. Let's see if we can get up and out. Go ahead. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So for the purpose of this demonstration, what I can go ahead and do is, Shibble, don't go near your mouth. I'm going to unplug this. I don't want anyone to ever hit themselves in their face, but go ahead now. You can wave. You can see how closely it's following. You can come out and, yep, you can come out. So how cool is this for our stroke patients, or honestly, any patient really that has any type of weakness, paralysis, anything like that? It is now truly patient driven. So they're using their unaffected side, or maybe their less debilitated or less impaired side, to move their impaired side. So we talked a little bit earlier about the manual strain on therapists. And I definitely think that's something that's underplayed in our industry, is how manual our job is. I mean, we're moving patients through limbs through space, or their bodies through space, for 6-7 hours a day. Some people more, some people less, but either way, it's taxing, it's tiring. Our workforce as a whole, OT and PT, our injury rate, musculoskeletal wise, is about the same as those in heavy manufacturing, which is crazy, because if you think about all the considerations that are put into place for heavy manufacturing, as far as the support that they get, the amount of time that they're checked in on, and breaks that they're allotted throughout the day, therapists, when you look at, if that's what the study found, and that seems to be true, and we're at the same rate of heavy manufacturing, our jobs are super labor intensive. And is it really possible for us to work 25-30 years in this profession without any type of injury or anything taking us away from what we love to do? That was my personal journey to finding this company. I suffered a back injury, an L5 fracture, S1 L5 herniation from a transfer gone wrong with a patient. And it opened my eyes to the fact that I might not be able to do my job the way that I thought I could for 20-25 years. And so looking at solutions on how we can provide better, objective, comprehensive therapies that also, for me as a therapist, aid in my burnout, my fatigue, all of those other things that are kind of plaguing our industry right now. So just to touch on that really quickly, with that idea in mind, I'm going to plug him back in. If I wanted to provide manual assistance, so let's say it is a patient, let's say it's a quadriplegic patient, or someone with paralysis or bilateral weakness, I can also use the robot's arms to drive both arms in this mode. So I'm actually facilitating at the robot's arm, and I can facilitate the movement and get both arms to move without the assistance of a rehab tech, without the assistance of any other type of device or any other person to help me facilitate those movements. So you guys could imagine, and it's off, I can also off-weight these arms, so it's even easier for me to move these in space than what it would feel like for me to manually pick up Shabul's arm and move around. How tall are you, Shabul?
I'm 6'1", 6 feet.
Yeah, he's pretty tall. He's a bigger guy. So just to kind of show you guys, like, I'm not sweating at all moving him through space.
Both arms are limp right now.
Yeah, he's being completely flaccid with both sides. So just to show you guys that as well, I think that's an interesting take on this robotic device. That's also a differentiator in the marketplace. So that's bilateral sync.
You covered a lot of really good concepts. This is amazing.
Awesome.
Even more amazing.
I'm glad you think so.
In person.
Yeah, I know. And it doesn't honestly do the person on the other side of the screen any justice to just see it. I mean, yes, it's really cool to see it moving, but I really feel like the true magic is getting on this device. And I get therapists on this device all the time, OPPT, even speech and language pathologists. And, you get them on here and their light bulbs just start going off because they feel how fluid it is to move in this device. In the engineering world, they call it transparency. So it's how seamless the device moves to the patient's, or the person on the other end's limb. Thank you, Shibul. And the transparency of this device is extremely, extremely good. So it's super fluid, easy to move. I think that's the number one thing that people are intimidated on when I've tried to get them on this device initially, is they think it's going to be clunky, heavy, hard to move around in, and that's just not the case. And it showcases itself when people actually get on it and try it out.
Yeah, no, it definitely demonstrates the usability in like hospital settings, or if you need to move it from room to room.
Yes.
I think this is great for any and all settings.
Yeah, I agree. We actually have a trial going on right now in a skilled nursing facility, which surprised me that there's interest there. But when I talked a little bit about, like I just mentioned, the burnout, the fact that you can adjust staffing ratios, all of that stuff with the use of this device, skilled nursing's very interested in that because they're very taxed for labor. Like, it's hard for them to find good help and to actually get patients therapy. If anyone has worked in skilled nursing before, patients don't even sometimes get like an hour a day. So if they have the ability to have like a nurse or like a nursing tech or a rehab tech or somebody that could just get somebody on this device and put them in predefined exercise, we're looking at really capitalizing on increasing their minutes and potentially getting them out of that skilled nursing facility quicker and actually home. Unfortunately in skilled nursing, we see a lot of patients that turn into long-term residents because of the supports that are, that they have. And it's not a knock at any skilled nursing facilities. It's just kind of the reality. And so how can we use Harmony to help patients,
Got it. Yeah, this is definitely the future of OT. And you talked a little bit about how this device could be used for assessments and evaluations. Can you also adjust any of the measurement parameters, I guess you can say, on the pendant?
As far as like sizing the device or
the sizing, and let's say, for example, we want to switch it over to pounds instead of kilograms, or
okay.
Yeah,
everything is in metric, so it's like kilograms of weight and stuff like that. In the engineering world and the rest of the world, that's how they speak to one another. But with that in mind, and just to jump forward to talk a little bit more about the data, we're currently in development of our data portal, so where clinicians will be able to log in and track their patients over time, so their range of motion, their coordination, their force generation. So that's how much effort a patient is putting in versus how much the robot is assisting. So all of those things are super important. And like the way we would talk about those, we want to make sure we, like as therapists, so with like percentage of assistance given or pounds of weight, things like that, reduced. Those types of terminology are going to be implemented in our portal so that it's more therapist language and less engineering terminology, because they need to cater to their end user. And it's been really cool as an OT to work in this setting and kind of be a part of that conversation of how to make that the most effective and efficient for therapy staff and provide them with the information that they want, that they genuinely want. So like on the pendant currently, you can see the amount of time that they're in each mode, the amount of assistance as far as like kilograms of weight that's given throughout, the repetitions completed. We know from a neuroplasticity standpoint that patients that are recovering from any type of neuro insult or injury need at least 100 repetitions per session for there to actually be cortical changes. So for neuroplasticity to actually take place, there needs to be 100 movements of the arm, let's just say, for example. And there was a study several years ago that shown that on average, patients were only getting about 32 repetitions per OT session or PT session, which obviously is well below the 100 repetition threshold. With robotics introduced, there can be 300 plus, and 10 or 15 minutes on this device, probably even less, depending on the speed of I set for something like that. I can hit 100 repetitions in just a few minutes versus sitting there and manually facilitating. And the most recent study that just came out in 2022 with those similar metrics actually shown that there has been a shift in thinking in OT, that now on average, we're getting about 77 repetitions per session. So we went from 32 several years ago to now 77. So there is definitely a change or a shift. And that means that's on average. So that means there's patients getting more, there's patients getting less. But still there's a shift in thinking and understanding that even with conventional therapy, we need to make sure that we're facilitating movement is happening. And that's how neuroplasticity takes effect and actually people get better. So
totally. And I can see how that's going to help a lot of clinicians with documentation in the future with the access to the portal and all of that too.
Yeah, I've got some, I don't want to disclose too much, but I've got some surprises there for documentation that will be coming along with the portal that'll hopefully make all of our lives a little bit easier as well. So I don't want to reveal too much, but that's definitely something we're considering, is how can we eliminate or cut down the time that it would take to write a note on a device after using a device like ours. So
and I'm sure all the practitioners will appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, I know I would if I was still in clinical practice. Absolutely. I haven't forgotten about notes.
So we talked a little bit about the usability for clinicians and the future of documentation. So let's talk a little bit about the cost range of this product. Are there any finance options available for certain hospital settings or outpatient settings? Can you tell me anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the fully integrated, I'll tell you the price and I'll tell you a little bit of why it is the way that it is. So the fully integrated market price for our device currently is $200,000. So it's a very expensive piece of equipment. However, I'll tell you from an engineering perspective that, like for example, lower extremity exoskeletons, I mentioned that they have 2 degrees of freedom versus ours having 14. Every degree of freedom can be anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 of engineering work. So if you multiply that out, that's kind of how we're at that price point that I mentioned. So it's not like we have massive margins, but even still, the first few partnerships or installs that we're looking to do, we are looking to discount the price. So it's on a case-by-case basis because we're still trying to get our footing in the market. And as I mentioned, we will have currently, as of last week, we've sold 3 clinical units so far. So we're interested in looking at our first few partnerships, giving them deals towards this device, because we think it's important to get it in the hands of clinicians. And also we understand that we're just now getting our foothold, but $200,000 is the price tag, the market price, as I mentioned. And then there is lease to own and leasing options as well. Those are obviously a little bit more reasonably priced. Right now, we're kind of doing that same special with the lease pricing as well. So around like $4,800 is what our $4,800 a month is our special pricing right now. But I think that will go up as I mentioned, as we're kind of like getting into the marketplace. So it's really exciting opportunity for any hospitals that want to be a part of the conversation, or any clinics that are wanting to be a part of the conversation of shifting healthcare into something that's a little bit more tech focused and objective, and, you know, also helps with therapist longevity as well. So keeping us in mind. So I'm really excited to kind of see, you know, who jumps on the bandwagon in addition to the few customers that we have currently. So
with such a huge OT community in California, I feel like if the moment any of us get our hands on that, like, it's just going to spread like wildfire. So I'm excited for that to reach the West Coast. I know you guys are based in Austin.
I actually moved from California to Austin, Texas myself. So I would love any excuse to go back there. We are talking to a few people, a few different settings, specifically the VA in California, but would love any other connections obviously out that way.
Great. Well, this is perfect. At least we get to show you off a little bit more to our—
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited for the opportunity.
Yeah. So a little bit about ordering this unit. So let's say we are interested in getting this product. Like, what would be the process of ordering it, and can insurance be involved? Can this be accessible to clients in their homes? How does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So currently we don't have a CPT code for our specific device. So as far as insurance reimbursements go, that's not something that we have currently. Most technology companies do not have a CPT code. For example, in countries like South Korea or some of the Asian markets, they actually have reimbursement codes for every piece of technology that you'd find in the gym, which really kind of pushes them as a medical community to have the best of the best, if that makes sense, because there's specific reimbursement codes for using specific types of technology. However, in the US, we don't have that, at least not yet. So it's something that we'd be pushing towards based on the clinical evidence that we discover in upcoming trials that we're planning to run with our device. That's something that you can use as evidence to go and get that CPT code and then use that with specific populations or diagnoses for reimbursement. It's just not something that we're quite at yet. It's been a large hurdle for other companies in our same industry to kind of get that CPT code, and that's why you don't see them out there yet. So hopefully the conversation shifts a little bit around that, and we're able to kind of disrupt and change that for not just us, but other companies that have really valuable technology as well. And then as far as you mentioned, so that's about reimbursement. If you wanted to purchase one, you could reach out to me directly. It's a pretty quick process. We're building about one robot a month right now. So basically we're building up inventory so that when we receive purchase orders, they can go get processed right away. For instance, we received a PO a week ago and we're actually delivering that unit tomorrow. So I'm flying out to install a separate clinical unit. But as far as like the purchasing process, usually it's determined by your directors of rehab. They're going to go ahead and go to their management, ask for budgeting approval, and have to go through the whole budgeting process to get approved for the right amount of money, then cut us a purchase order. That's a PO. So with that purchase order, then they, submit that to us. We say, awesome. We go ahead and get their robot ready and go ahead and ship it on out and get out there as soon as possible. Because as I mentioned earlier, we think it's really vital to get this type of technology in the hands of the therapist, which is, who is ultimately designed for patient benefit.
Yeah. So both clinician and patient outcomes improved.
Hopefully, yes.
So that kind of brings me to my next question. So you talked a little bit about going through the higher ups for administration in order to get all the budgeting done. So what about, and I know you said you were going to be flying over to install it and help install it. Are you doing training? Does that come with the purchase as well?
Yes. Yep. So I am the clinical education and training specialist. I'm the only OT/clinical person that they have on staff for right now at Harmonic Bionics. It's definitely something that our company sees a lot of value in, and we're going to continually grow our team in a clinical direction, which is really exciting and something that's also a differentiator versus other companies in the marketplace. Yeah. So typically when somebody buys it, it's going to include the cost of the training and the install. So sending me out to be there on site. I complete about a 4-hour training. For a group of 4 to 6, it's about 4 hours of training. For a group of 1 to 3, it's about a 3-hour. I can maybe make it a little bit less time that I get to spend with the therapist on the device. So introducing all of the instructions for use, all the contraindications and precautions of the use of the device, all that fun stuff, to obviously getting on and practicing being a patient and an operator on the device. So that is included in the cost of the device, is, getting it to the hospital or facility or the patient, installing it, training to it. And then my job now after the fact is continually following up. So just supporting their staff and answering any questions they might have, jumping on calls, helping them problem solve, and then providing like continuing education opportunities as well through our company. So like free continuing education credits, something similar to what we're doing right now, setting up virtual meetings to talk about not just the use of Harmony, but just indications and efficacy of different devices in the marketplace with advanced technology or different types of use cases, or presenting, research that we're going to have in the future to the people that have our device so that they can start using those protocols with their patients as well.
So now that it's out there and now that more and more people are starting to pick up on it, what would be the best way for them to try it out themselves? Like if you have other interested facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do, for facilities that are interested in, typically how it goes is usually we'll reach out to somebody or they'll reach out to us as our initial intro to, getting our name in front of somebody that works for that hospital or organization or company. And we'll set up a virtual demonstration. So I go through a series of slides, just kind of discussing the device. It's not something like this where I have the device right behind me, because it's not always the most convenient when I'm traveling and doing that stuff, but just kind of introducing our technology, answering initial questions. If there's interest further from there, we'll set up an in-service. So we'll actually go out to the location and perform an in-service for the hospital staff, clinical staff, whoever it might be, the doctors that are interested, researchers. So we'll actually go on site, set up our device, which is nice. It's actually pretty easy to travel. We ship it. It goes in a little box. We ship it, shows up at the hospital. We unpack it, get it ready to go. And so we'll do like a lunch and learn or an in-service, if you will. Similar to the demonstration you all just saw here is what I give to the therapy staff. And I like to leave lots of time for them to actually get on the device or come check it out or ask me questions. And then if there's still interest from there, at that point, typically, if there's still interest and there might be, they need a little bit more convincing from an administrative level, we also offer 4-week trials. So that's the trial I mentioned just a few minutes ago. We have a device that's strictly used for clinical trials. So we try to be really strategic about where we set those up, and make sure that, it's somebody that's genuinely interested in having this technology. Otherwise, it's kind of a tease to give it to your therapist for 4 weeks and then take it away. But that's currently like how it looks for us. So 4-week trial. And then typically if they have 4-week trials, the decision maker of, do you get a purchase order or are you passing on the technology? So that's kind of how it looks. If you want, as a student or as anybody else as a therapist that's just interested in getting hands-on with the technology, we do go to quite a few conferences. So you can always find us at conferences. We always have a robot with us. We're always willing to get people on and try it out. And then also there's just other opportunities for us that we're doing showcases or anything like that. We do a lot of stuff, obviously in Austin, there's a ton of events and things that go on here. Is very tech focused and forward city. So there's a lot of things that we do here locally, but there are things that we do travel for as well. And so, always check in on our website. We have an events section on our website that people can check out and see where we're going. And we send out newsletters as well. If you sign up for to find out more about our device on our website, you can also follow where we're going to be. We send out quarterly newsletters of all the events or conferences that we're going to be at for that next several months. So
perfect. So we'll be sure to add the link to the video. Make sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Now another question that I had. I know you already talked about shipping out some of the robots out. What are some of the current facilities that you're partnered up with that have shared anything with you about the use of the robot?
Yeah. So our very first, that's a great question. So we have 4 units that are out at institutions who wanted to purchase our device to specifically use with researchers. Mm-hmm. So some of them are biomedical or engineering background. So they're kind of looking at more of how they can reconfigure or rework the device with the technology as it is. But there's specifically a few that are from a biomedical background that are looking at exploring the use of our device with harmony with patients with varying levels of disability. Mm-hmm. And so we're at the University of Houston, Penn State, Auburn, and University of Texas. So there's those 4. And then as far as clinical installs, we have Del Seton here in Austin. And we also are going to be installing, I mentioned previously, I'm flying out tomorrow to Phoenix. It's the Barrow Neurological Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, which is a very, very well-known facility out west towards you guys for obviously treating patients with varying different types of neuro conditions. But they actually purchased 2 devices. So they're going to put one in their outpatient and one in their inpatient. And so we're really excited to go out there and we're going to install the first of their 2. We're building to order. So we have one ready to go. We're going to get it in their hands so they can start using it. And in October, end of October, early November, we'll be delivering their second unit. So Barrow Neurological Institute. And then here locally, we have University of Texas. Del Seton is a large hospital downtown that also has our device. Preliminarily, I'm going to speak to the one that's already been installed since June, and then the ones that are at the research facilities. Really, happy customers. They're excited to use the technology. Patients are signing up left and right to use it. And so, it's something that they're looking at buying more than one because they have, a list of patients. They have 5-6 slots that are booked up every single day. And so it's obviously in our, we're excited because the whole premise of building a device like this is you want heavy utilization. You don't want a hospital or anybody purchasing something just to sit in the corner. So we're constantly looking at how to better improve this product as it is currently, its current configuration. So there's already a couple of things in the pipeline that are going to be changing what you guys even see here between now and the beginning of next year. So I don't want to share too much, but there's a lot of things that are happening and we're really trying to innovate and not stay the same. Like unfortunately, a lot of technology seems to have done in the same space. So
super excited to learn a lot about the Harmony SHR and super
thank you.
to have Kylie of Harmonic Bionics share with us. You're pioneering a way into the tech field and collaborating OT and tech. And that is exactly what we love to see. So thank you, Kylie, so much for all of your time and for all of your knowledge that you shared with us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I'll be sure to add a link below for all of the viewers to watch. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.